Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I am seeing green and I seem to have a pretty decent signal. And I'm seeing myself moving and shaking, so I'm going to take it as if I am up. I don't know how many people hung around. I guess nobody hung around, but I was splitting up the show and I was re-adding the information for the show itself. So welcome back. If you come back, hopefully those people will come back. I saw this story, and this story is not necessarily going to be long, so maybe this wasn't the best story for people to come back on. But nevertheless, DACA. Let's talk about DACA. Now, let's be very clear what is taking place. An omnibus bill was brought into Congress. This bill was signed by Democrats and Republicans, House, Senate. And the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has threatened to veto the bill, but essentially walked back the veto and turned around and said he was going to sign it if he hasn't already signed the bill. This will fund the government for a period of time. Now, here's the thing, though, and the part I want to talk about. Of all the things that this omnibus bill has, a $1.3 trillion omnibus bill, Donald Trump does get some budgeting for his wall. I mean, it's not necessarily all the money that he wanted for his wall, but he's getting some funding for border security and all those other things. What's not included is DACA. DACA is not in the bill. You have a bill that is like 2,000 pages long, more than 2,000 pages long. They haven't even read all of the bill. They signed a bill that they haven't even read, meaning they don't even know everything that's in the bill. The bill was only there for a few days. It was impossible for them to read everything that was in that bill. But the one thing that they knew it didn't include was DACA. And one decision after the next, the Democratic Party has failed miserably with the DACA issue. Do you know that Donald Trump at one point, he's like, it doesn't even include the DACA recipients, a fix for DACA. The Republican president, at the end of the day, is the one saying it doesn't even include the fix for DACA. That's sad. That's profoundly sad. In fact, let's go back for a moment, just so you know where I'm coming from. I was out of the country, and while I was out the country, I see Democrats have shut the government down. And I see stories like this, and I'm like, wow. This is what happens during a United States government shutdown. When the Senate falling short of votes needed for a funding proposal, the United States government officially shut down Friday at midnight. Lawmakers had a similar deadline last month, but they passed a continuing resolution, December 21st, to keep the federal government funded for 1 month. Democrats have been pushing for a solution for the recipients of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program and insisted that it be addressed before Friday's deadline, and the two parties were unable to reach a resolution. The House voted Thursday night to avert a government shutdown, sending the bill onto the Senate, where it failed 50-49. 49 Democrats in the Senate. And fact is, they couldn't pass what they needed to pass without those Democrats coming along for it. And those Democrats stumped their feet and said, no, you shall not pass. You shall not pass. They shut the government down. We're bringing the shit to a stop until you do something for the childhood arrivals. And I did a video saying, yes, good job. You're standing for something. You scream about identity at the top of your lungs in one measure after the next. And under normal circumstances, I hate the idea that you use identity in that way. But fact is, if you're going to use that identity in the way that you use identity, at the very least thing you can do is stand up for that particular identity. I mean, you can be there. You can stand up. You can stomp your feet and say, no. You guys have the House, the Senate, the presidency, and the Supreme Court. It is your responsibility to keep the government up and running and functioning, and if you can't do it, it's none of our business. You could take that stance. And for a brief, blistering moment, you took that stance, and I gave you credit for taking that stance. 3 days later, after this kind of bourgeois shutdown, a government shutdown, you're back open and running, back up and running. We have business to attend to. We did our shutdown. I mean, everybody was happy with it, right? We did our best. We did our best. We shut the government down. Aren't you darkies happy? Aren't you happy? Not so much. It looks like theater to me at that point. It looks like you don't really care about it. that ultimately you just do this to give this kind of grand showing where I shut the government down and all I got was a stupid t-shirt. You shut the government down supposedly for DACA recipients and you open the government back up without having anything done for DACA recipients. What gives? What gives? A few days later, you find out, okay, they passed a continuing resolution that did not in any way include the DACA recipients. And you see a picture that looks like this. This guy. Budget talks progress as Senate Democrats drop Dreamer demands. That guy explaining with that face why they failed. Why did we fail? That's the face of failure. That's the face of failure. This is Dick Durbin, by the way. That's the fail face. A few days later, Senate Democrats drop DACA from budget negotiations. They abandon it entirely. They abandon it entirely. And right now, they just signed an omnibus bill that did not include the DACA recipients. They entirely abandoned DACA. I want all of those Hispanics that vote for Democrat to remember this next time the polling location comes around and these guys out there shilling for votes. And I don't mean go to a Republican. Lord knows I don't mean go to a Republican. I'm trying to make this point. My point is always, it's not one or the other, it's both. They don't believe this stuff. They believe this stuff only in so much as it gets them votes or it gets them elected, meaning usually it revolves around cash. Usually they can make the argument to you that the other person is worse, and so you cater and go ahead and give your vote to these guys. They let you down. They fundamentally and completely let you down. And one step after the next, they let you down. There's no reason to reward this level of failure. I've been studying up on DACA today, and it's a fascinating fucking quagmire. Like, so Obama not being able, or not coming up with a fix, meaning Democrats not coming up with a fix for immigration stuff, because let's be honest, Republicans don't care about the immigration stuff. From their standpoint, they're perfectly okay with having immigrants kicked out of the country. They like what Donald Trump is doing. His base likes what he's doing. What he's supposed to do. There's not an apology for it. I don't necessarily like what he's doing of getting rid of the fix. I would prefer they have an actual fix. I would prefer they have a path to citizenship. Now, Trump in this case has said he has been open to this, even against his base. He said he was open to this. Now, to be fair, what he's been asking for is a non-starter on some degree, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't negotiate for some of that stuff. I don't care if you give Donald Trump that money for that border wall. I don't care when I give him the money for the border wall. The people in this case are more important. But one step along the way, every little bit of leverage that Democrats might have had, they gave it up one step of the way. I made a video after each step in which they gave up more and more leverage to force their way within the negotiation, at least for that particular thing in negotiation. They gave it up. And finally, after all of this theatrics, they give it away entirely. DACA is weird because DACA is not a legal thing, if that makes sense. It's in this kind of great quagmire. The President of the United States took the disposition, Obama, that he can create not so much a law, but he can give discretion to how the laws are being followed. So he could say, look, I can't change the law. What I can do, however, is say I want to have forces pay more attention to X as opposed to paying attention to Y. So I want you to pay attention to all of these other rogues and thugs and these other horrible people, but leave the people alone who are just decent, hard-working Americans who come to this country to make their ends and make their living, and who had no choice in the matter of coming here. They've tried to expand that, meaning he did try at some point to expand the parameters of that particular program, and he was struck down in court. But the original precedent of DACA itself has never been taken out and never been challenged legally. It's presidential discretion. And it is presidential discretion, meaning when Donald Trump took office, it was also presidential discretion. And he used that presidential discretion to just get rid of it. Now, he's being challenged for this. I don't know how they're going to win this in court, because it is presidential discretion. It's like the same thing that allowed him to create it would allow the next president to undo it. And if you don't allow the next president to undo it, that sets an amazing precedent. That means that presidents create things that go on in perpetuity, and other presidents can't get rid of those things. It would be fucking amazing. Now, the people who are challenging this have a point, saying, look, we depended on the last president, and we got work permits, we got visas, we have all these things that were attributable to the program. You can't just take this from under our feet. And beyond that, anytime you get rid of something, you need to give a reason to get rid of it. It's the same argument that's being used for net neutrality. If you're getting rid of something, you need to give a reason for getting rid of net neutrality. Well, in this case, Donald Trump is deciding to get rid of it. They're taking him to court over him getting rid of it. And for all intents and purposes, it is a legal gray area. The executive branch carves out, I guess, a presidential discretion. And the offices of the president functions around that presidential discretion at that point. It's not really a law because it didn't go through Congress. And yet it's there and exists nonetheless. It's really bizarre. But that's being challenged. And the long story short, DACA has been abandoned by the Democratic Party. It is not in the budget. And one impasse after the next, when they had the opportunity to kind of force their way, they just gave it up and then tried to force their way on it, means they didn't really mean it. The little 3-day theatrical bourgeois shutdown is not the same thing as actually pushing and fighting and bitching and moaning each step along the way, giving no ground until you get the thing that you want, in this case, DACA, and protecting those recipients. So, gold star for Democrats for failing on this. And I guess good job, Republicans, I guess, for getting X number of people kicked out of the country, and this is the only country that they know. Good job. Good job. Let's see. Obama was kicking people out that were illegal till 2016. DACA was about getting more votes for a new generation than it was for football. Look, yes, Democrats are political actors. They're hacks. Yes, they are. Agreed. I've said before in more than one video, the whole thing with DACA and the whole thing with Hispanics in general, they keep these people in limbo for political ends. They keep them in limbo. If a Republican comes into office, you know what's going to happen. They're going to kick you out of the country. Who do you want to vote for? Who do you want to vote for? You have family members that are in this country through suspicious means. Who do you want to vote for? It's a pressure. It's this incentive. If you put Hillary Clinton in, she's going to have a chance of doing something that helps you to be illegal. It helps you be legal. But at the very least, she's not going to come after you in the same way that a Republican is going to come after you. This is, by the way, the argument that's used for blacks, Hispanics, and lefties. The entire voting demographic for the Democratic Party depends on the Democratic Party in an unhealthy, politically abusive way. Or I should say, subjugated way. You're so terrified of the other guy that you let this monster goes running around the countryside any way it wants to. It's like curb your dog. Don't let your dog curb you. You've let the party essentially take control of the apparatus because you're terrified of the Republican Party. That's greatly problematic, and one of the results of that is the Hispanic vote being a vote out of pure and utter terror of what the Republican Party is going to do. In this case, the Republican president got rid of the DACA program. He gave them 6 or 8 months, however long, to come up with a fix for the program. I guess he assumed that there would be a fix in for the program. There has been no fix for the program, and it has not been included in the budget itself. That's where we are. That's where we are. So I'm not going to keep this one long. This is more so an update. I do have another program after this, so I will see you guys shortly. Thanks, guys.